Well, thanks for those kind words of introduction. It's an honor and a great pleasure to be here to talk about quantum technologies in this city, which is really taking a leading role in innovation, incubation, research, and now scaling the technology. It's also a great pleasure to be joined on stage by Preeti Chalsani and by Matt Forte. Now, many of you may know that Matt was a former professional football player. Bear down. What you may not know is that he's not the only Matt on this stage who was a former professional football player. That's right. I played myself, European football, of course. Matt's NFL career lasted 10 seasons. My career lasted just shy of 10 weeks. I earned $700 a week during my career. And Matt, as I understand it, did a little bit of research, seemed to have been just north of that figure.
It's the Bears, so, you know.
But my professional flameout on the field was actually a bit of a blessing in disguise, because it gave me the opportunity to learn about quantum technologies, and now I lead the topic at BCG. And in that role, I believe that when the history of the 21st century is written, quantum computing will play a hero's role. No technology, in my view, will be more consequential. And that's something that I believe, not because quantum computers will be exponentially faster than classical computers, not because of the nearly $1 trillion that we project will be created for businesses, but because so many of the problems that quantum computers are poised to solve align to the most pressing, urgent social challenges that we face today. You know, from public health to cybersecurity to climate change. Let me give you a little illustrative example. Take the problem of fertilizer production, one of the hallmark problems in the science of climate change. The way it works today is that hydrogen and nitrogen are fused to create ammonia. And now that process works, but it comes at an enormous cost to companies who spend hundreds of billions of dollars a year producing it. And most importantly, to the environment. 2% of the world's energy is expended every year on fertilizer synthesis. Now, here's the remarkable thing. Scientists know how to perform and run the chemical simulations that would lead to a more energy-efficient alternative. The issue is that simulating the maze-like molecular interactions of the key catalyst on even the world's fastest supercomputer today would take 800,000 years. With a quantum computer, less than 24 hours. Now, a way to frame this in terms that everyone will understand is that while quantum computers run at Matt Forte's speed, classical computers run at Matt Langione's speed. And it so happens that businesses need a lot more of the Matt Forte speed to run problems in drug discovery, to optimize energy grids, to detect transaction and identity fraud. And that's why more than 100 Fortune 500 companies are experimenting with quantum computing and technologies today. So this technology, if we get it right, has the potential to catalyze changes to our world that would be impossible to even imagine without it. And no place is doing more to get it right than this place, Chicago, Illinois, and the greater area, with more than $500 million of investments in quantum companies, with 4 of the top 10 most federally funded research institutions, and now with a 300,000 square foot quantum research facility. But getting it right will also take many of you in this room. So the intent of this panel is to give a little introduction to the technology, to talk about its business and societal implications, and also the role that Illinois is playing in driving it. Before we launch into all of that, we're going to take a little bit of a pulse check. And for that, I'm going to hand it over to the other professional football player on this panel, Matt Forte.
Thank you. It's a blessing to be in the room with such astute, wise people to talk about quantum as well. So like Matt said before the panel, we want to get a a pulse in the room. Can I get the QR code up, please? So you guys get that. Give you a little bit of time to get ready. Just don't use mat speed. All right, let's do the first poll question. How familiar are you with quantum technology? A, never heard of it. B, vaguely aware. C, somewhat informed. D, actively engaged. So, looks like we got a good mix in the room. D is actively engaged, the highest level, but somewhat informed and vaguely aware are about the same. So, looks like we got a good mix in the room. All right, next question. Which industry will quantum transform the most? A, healthcare. B, cybersecurity. C, climate and energy. D, finance. Or E, transportation. And it looks like healthcare is leading in that aspect, which we all love, right? We all need healthcare, so that's a good thing to have. And cybersecurity as well, because everybody's trying to steal everybody's information. Next question, where should Illinois double down? Talent pipeline, research funding, startups, corporate adoption, or public awareness? Where should Illinois double down? And it looks like what I thought too, talent pipeline. I think that's important because we need access in all communities, right, to quantum technology and to expose our young people to these new and innovative things. Next question, and the best question, let's see. Who's the greatest Chicago Bear of all time? Is it A, Walter Payton? Is it B, some dude named Matt Forte? I don't know who that is, but C, Brian Urlacher, D, Devin Hester, or E, Mike Ditka?
None of those other guys know anything about quantum technology.
No, they don't. Yeah.
That we know of.
And surprisingly, B, Matt Forte is one. You guys are so kind. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. I voted for Walter, but. And that's our poll. So we're going to transition to our panel questions real quick, which I'm excited to hear about as well with Preeti and Matt. I'm going to start with Preeti. So quantum is not just a buzzword, right? We care about it, and let's unpack that. Preeti, in simple terms, what is quantum technology and why does it matter now more than ever? Because all I know about quantum is Quantum Leap, the 1980s TV show.
Well, glad you're asking me about quantum and not football, because it's a toss-up. Who knows more about the other? So just to give you a little introduction, I know many people in the room already are very familiar with quantum, but quantum technologies are technologies that leverage quantum mechanical effects. These are peculiar effects that show up at very small scales, at the scales of atoms and molecules. But turns out we can do interesting and useful things with these quantum mechanical effects. These are new. Many technologies like lasers, semiconductors, modern computers are built using devices that leverage these quantum mechanical effects. But in the last 2 decades or so, as technological advances have been made in instrumentation, information processing, lots of different areas, we have been able to leverage some of the even more peculiar quantum mechanical effects, superposition and entanglement, to do new and interesting things, to create and store information, to transmit information, to process information, giving rise to what we call the second quantum revolution. Fields like quantum computing, quantum sensing, quantum communications. This is very exciting because it really allows us to solve problems that we weren't able to solve before. Matt talked about this. It opens up whole new industries, creating new economies, and we can work on this very intentionally. The tremendous impact that's possible is what makes this really exciting. I wish I could remember who said this, but it really stuck with me. The idea is that quantum technologies, we're most likely overestimating the impact it can have in the short term, but we're definitely underestimating the long-term impact. So when I think about that, it's very exciting. It's hard, there's lots of challenges ahead, but that's also exciting because it brings together so many different industries, very complex fab challenges to people working on drug discovery. It's such an exciting time to be in this field because you're being able to bring all these different sectors together to create new frontiers. And that's what's most exciting to me.
Thank you. Now, Matt, you advise global companies, and how are they viewing quantum today? Are they preparing, or are they more skeptical on that side?
It's a mix. It's a great question. So I had mentioned that there's 100 Fortune 500 companies that are experimenting in one way or another with quantum technologies, which I think is somewhat unprecedented for a deep technology like this. Another thing I'll mention is that that's an increase of 50% from 2022, which I think is actually remarkable growth given economic uncertainty during that period, and also the rising tide of AI and machine learning, which attracted a lot of investments itself. So I think we have a really healthy set of early adopters in industries like energy, finance, materials, et cetera. On the other hand, I think that there is an opportunity when you think about the companies that are really making truly deep investments today. I think it's probably a little bit less than I'd like to see. If you think about, ChatGPT came out in 2022. About 2 years later, we at BCG looked across our client base and found that only 1 in 10 companies had actually scaled an AI use case. What that tells me is that there was a lot of lack of preparedness from data perspective, talent perspective, process perspective. And my view is that only a few companies now are really prepared to kind of turn the light switch on when quantum computing happens. And I'd love to just see a little bit more of that. So I would say that there's optimism and enthusiasm around the technology, especially concentrated in a set of key industries. But I think there's still a long way to go in order to get kind of quantum ready.
Yeah, good. Preeti, with $500 million in investments and projects like Illinois Quantum Microelectronics Park, how did Illinois become a leader?
So I think really the reason why we're seeing this amazing moment in Illinois, why it's a leader, is because most of the ingredients that form the quantum technology value chain have been in place in Illinois. We have some of the world's best universities, research institutions like Argonne and Fermi, that have been pioneering science and technological breakthroughs that kind of feed into quantum technologies. These research institutions have been doing the hard work of putting infrastructure in place, 2 of the world's fastest supercomputers, many state-of-the-art fabrication facilities, materials characterization facilities. All of these things have been built up over the decades that can now be leveraged to advance quantum. And even more importantly, these organizations have, the world-class programs have created a talent base, like broad and deep talent base, that is critical to this technology. And not just STEM, but we have some of the world's best business schools here, creating business talent and entrepreneurial talent. And you need that to create, economic impact from amazing science. We also have a very diverse industry base. This is critical to emerging technologies that are exploring applications in different sectors. And it's not just important to have these ingredients, right? We've been really fortunate to have catalysts, ecosystem catalysts, like the Chicago Quantum Exchange, which is one of the biggest consortia globally that brings together research institutions, industry, government, policymakers. We have commercialization engines like the Chain Reactions Innovations Incubator, Argon, Duality, the first startup accelerator, many other innovation hubs like M-Hub, even the Chicago Biomedical Consortium, that are all at the cutting edge of their fields and are able to work together to advance quantum. We have the state's economic development organizations like Intersect, like P33. This is really unusual. You don't see that in other states, that they're so deeply involved in this field. And I mean, I have to say, like, probably the biggest ecosystem catalyst is the support from the state. That's unprecedented. That is not something you see in other states, but I see other states like trying to emulate this. But the fact that this is not new, the governor has been supporting quantum since 2019, the $500 million investment, that is a very unique way of supporting this ecosystem. And all, you know, the fact that the state legislature, the Department of Commerce, all of the machinery of the state is behind this, the city, the county, that's just unimaginable. And I think that's what's created this situation where we have a growing number of quantum companies and we're attracting more and more. And we have this real will everywhere to make something of this moment.
Yeah. So Matt, with when you talk to the industry leaders in quantum, where do they say the value is in the next 3 to 5 years? And are there any standout cases?
Yeah, it's a great question. So, you know, the race to quantum advantage is very much on, especially in industries like finance, materials, energy. And, you know, when I think about those, you know, I mentioned a set of companies that are particularly advanced in not just what they're spending on quantum computing, but their internal talent, you know, their partnerships that they've secured. When I look at those, about half of those are finance companies because there are some really important use cases there around portfolio optimization, around derivatives pricing, around identity theft and fraud protection, and so I think finance is pretty early in its adoption curve, and then I would say when you talk to providers of the technology, so those that are actually building quantum computers and developing algorithms, there's a lot of enthusiasm around materials science and discovering new catalysts. In terms of an early example of quantum advantage. Then the last thing I would say is we're seeing a lot of really interesting intersections of AI and quantum. So, AI in a way democratizing the ability to program quantum computers, and also a lot of exploration around ways in which, quantum computing could turbocharge or extend the capabilities of AI.
Oh man, that's awesome. Well, thank you for that. Because yeah, sometimes AI and quantum mixing kind of scares me a little bit. But now, Preeti, how are you ensuring this quantum boom benefits communities, especially on Chicago's South and West Side?
Yeah, I think that is another exciting aspect to all of the work that's being done in Illinois. I think there's a very intentional effort to make sure that while we're building the IQMP in the South Side, we're also engaging the community, we're engaging the high schools, we're engaging the teachers and principals. And the fact that there's so much awareness in Illinois about what quantum technologies are and what it can do has really helped us. I think what we're doing is trying to create an excitement amongst the schools. So we're hoping that new generations of talent will come out of this. We're creating workforce development programs in conjunction with companies or research labs, which will hire this talent. So we're really trying to work on all of the pieces to make sure that quantum technologies, this quantum revolution, can have an impact across all society. And not because that's a good thing to do or the right thing to do, but really we need to do it. There's just not enough human resource if we weren't to engage everybody who can be engaged. And while it's important to have like scientists and engineers, especially the early stages, we also need to train technicians, we need to train communications professionals, we need to train lawyers and human resources professionals to work in this field. So it's really exciting to be able to do that intentionally.
Yeah, and Matt, piggybacking off of that, what are the biggest capability gaps across the industry, and how can Illinois position itself to fill them?
All right, it's a good question. I'm gonna paint like kind of a very general picture, but when you think of a technology stack, you've got hardware at the bottom, you've got a layer of middleware, and then you've got software at the top. And in quantum computing, think about the hardware as sort of systems of qubits, essentially in the architecture. Middleware is kind of error correction, and then you have algorithms and applications at the top. I think, starting from bottom up, I think progress along hardware has been very steady and impressive. I think error correction is actually somewhat ahead of schedule, and there have been developments that in some ways surprised many of us. I think what's lagging is that top layer, so that algorithms and solutions. And so in my view, and one of the reasons that it's lagging is because the way that traditional algorithms are developed and solutions are developed in classical computing is through test-driven experimentation, where you build a certain amount of code and test it, and then build up from there. That's been impossible on quantum computers because the systems aren't big enough to test the algorithms in a way that validates and allows progress. We think that regime is actually starting now. So kind of now is the time that we can really enter into this test-driven, hopefully explosion of algorithm development. But I think what needs to happen, and it seems like what is happening here with the National Quantum Algorithm Center, is the bringing together of university talent, industry talent, but also talent that sits with end users, knowledge about chemistry workflows and about quantitative finance. These are really important skills to bring to bear in that top layer of the stack that I think is really kind of the next frontier.
Awesome. My Tulane grad, did you get that? Heard that. You heard that? All right. Well, this is the last question, and it's to both of you, but Preeti, ladies first. If you had to pick one bold action Illinois should take this year to lead globally in quantum, what would it be?
Trick question. And there's, I think, two critical resources one needs. And one is infrastructure, the other is talent. I think we should really go all out in making sure we're building more of the infrastructure and using that infrastructure to train more talent to kind of keep this machinery running.
And I'm going to go again with the National Quantum Algorithm Center. I think that what's really, really important in accelerating technologies is ensuring that all eyes are on kind of the right set of problems, high value problems that really take kind of all hands to solve them. And I think a place like Illinois, with all the resources that you've described, Preeti, really has the convening power to make that happen, maybe uniquely so.
Well, thank you guys for being on my panel. And now, as we close, I just wanted to say that today wasn't just about quantum, that it's about ownership. And quantum must serve everyone, not just in labs and in boardrooms. And let's carry the momentum forward. And obviously supporting local talent, championing awareness, and ensuring that the technology reflects and values our communities. And whether you're a policymaker, student, a founder, or an investor, Illinois quantum future really does depend on you guys. So thank you guys for your time. Thank you.